Well, we'll see if we can actually get this to work correctly. We'll see. I think we keep having streaming problems, but who knows? So while we're figuring this out, we're literally going to talk a little bit about um, dynasties and why we're leaning into that so heavy these days, especially here at the PBG Academy. And for those of you that are listening over on Telegram in D4, D3 will have to join us on YouTube because we can't broadcast to both divisions at the same time. And that's unfortunate. Sorry about that. So if you're D3, you'll have to join us on YouTube. And if you're D4, you can go ahead and stay on Telegram. You don't have to come over to YouTube. So we're just going to jump right into it. But the thing is that there's a biblical principle that also applies to business, and it's called the dynasty principle. This is a very real thing. It's not a made-up term. The wealthy understand it. They've understood it for millennia. And how this kind of works is that they know something that most ordinary people don't. And so let's take, for example, retirement. And as most people understand retirement, it's a dead end. It literally is the end of the road. Retiring means to take out of service. And the long view of generational wealth, especially according to the ancient Hebrews, it's literally been sitting in plain sight in the Bible. And it's done through a lot of parables. It's done through the teachings of the Messiah, a lot of the wise men, the prophets, but in particular, Solomon left a blueprint for how to create and structure a real dynasty. A lot of churches don't teach that principle because it has to do with ensuring that those are really vanity metrics, and well-meaning people, pastors and clergymen, they get caught up in the whole optics of the whole thing, and they want the really nice stuff, the gift store, the nice seats, the theater, the big screens, all the kind of the circus atmosphere that creates. And then they focus heavily on their wealth to keep the ministry going, as they put it, but not much for the congregation, because if they taught it strictly to the congregation as the way the scriptures intended for us to be able to handle and manage wealth, income, business, debt, all those things, people wouldn't be giving as much to the church because they would be taking care of their families as the scriptures direct them to do. And maybe there are some churches and organizations that know this. That's why they keep their flocks in the dark, thereby pulling food out of their mouths, metaphorically, as the scriptures call it. But there are some very plain truths to this, and sometimes it's going to hit you a certain way. It's not going to land well with a lot of people, and some people may even scoff, but that doesn't mean that it's still not true. Because nobody wants to confront the plain language of the whole thing, and that is that the moment your life plan centers around retirement, if the entire goal is to work towards your retirement, you've already amputated your legacy. You've already gave it its end of life. And we were never commanded to stop building, ever. And the real cost of that trade isn't just financial. It's measured in your bloodline, your dynasty, your heirs, your estate, and grandchildren and great grandchildren are forced to begin from nothing because someone before them decided that the story should stop at 65 when they collect their retirement benefits. Now, the thing about retiring is, well, it sounds good, and who doesn't want to be retired? Life of labor is an exhausting thing. But the retirement mindset, it's not liberation. It's a limitation. And I'll explain that. It's an invisible barrier, and it's just above a person's capacity to provide at a high level across their generations. It's a ceiling. And most people spend decades climbing towards that ceiling. And the minute that they bump their head against it, they call the whole process wisdom. And King Solomon wouldn't have seen it that way. He would have seen it completely different. He wouldn't have called it evidence of a deeper problem. A person who plans to stop has already decided the scale of what they'll leave behind. You've already determined this is it. And that might hit some people kind of hard because something in you already recognizes it. Most everybody does. If you could have a conversation with your grandparents or parents, if they're retired, they would tell you the same thing. I wish we had more. Now, deep down, you know the dream was never supposed to expire on a certain birthday. It was supposed to keep working long after you're gone. And if you pause and picture the standard model people call financial responsibility, it goes kind of something like this. You work for decades, you stash away part of what you earn, you wait patiently and let it grow, and then you slow down and you finally stop those contributions. But the fantasy behind that setup isn't really freedom. It's an escape. And escape is what people pursue when they never believe they could build something worth remaining. They want to get out of what they think is the hamster wheel, the rat race. What's the point? This is the most I'll ever do. This is the most I ever had. It's just my lot in life. And that's the consumption trap. Only it's dressed up in respectable language. We're using key language to make it sound like this is responsible. And saving for the day that you can stop working is still a subtraction-based strategy. And here's why. Every time you draw out of your retirement account, you're choosing use over continuation. You're using that fund instead of continuing it. And you're using or choosing depletion over construction and building. You aren't extending the structure when you live off that account. You're slowly taking it apart until the balance is gone. The years are gone. And so one question remains. Was that built only for you? Did you build it only for yourself? King Solomon saw something in the modern financial world back then, which sort of transcends time, and you could say that it applies today. If you look in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 18 and 19, Solomon said that he hated all the labor under the sun because he would have to leave it to the one who came after him. And who could say whether that person would be wise or foolish? So really, he's identifying a problem. It isn't work itself. It's work that dies in the transfer. Labor that can't survive the handoff disappears. And then if you consider what the big they, corporate America, the governments all over the world, et cetera, their modern retirement scheme that they have embedded in everyone's mind, it's built on a hidden assumption that the purpose of a working life is to gather enough assets to eventually stop producing, right? Like I built all I'm going to build. I've got everything that I'll ever need until the day I die. And that's what the structure assumes from top to bottom. It's literally coded into the design. Accounts designed to be depleted. That's your 401k, your Roth, your Social Security account. All of those are paid into, but they're also designed to be depleted. And products designed around actuarial timelines called planned obsolescence. Think about why something only has a 2-year shelf life before you have to replace it. They do that on purpose to keep you buying. Planning models, that's what a will does. That's what probate does, balancing the books. And it's like the old expression, there's only 2 things that are certain, death and taxes. So kind of marinate on that for just a second. This is a system built to manage your ending, not extend your family line or your dynasty. It was built to manage your end of life. It was never designed to create a dynasty. The vernacular would say it's old money. Yeah, they definitely knew something. Think of the Rothschilds, Rockefellers. You guys get the drift. And that's really kind of where the problem is. It's a system designed to manage your ending, not extend your dynasty. It was designed to close the cycle and hand the remainder back to the institutions once the paperwork is done. Once it's all filed and it's proper. People who truly understand wealth, they reverse that. They build towards a day that they transfer. They transfer it to the next person in their family in line to continue on with the work that they did. It's like a baton race. You get there and you're handing off the baton and say, look, I got us this far. This is what I did. This is what we have. Now it's your job to take this and keep going and keep multiplying. That's your job. That's your duty to this family. Now, the goal isn't a final season of personal ease. That should come anyway. It will be part of the process if you do it correctly. The goal, though, is a future starting point for the next generation. Because once you make that shift, every decision you make will change. It really will. How you own land, how you organize business structures, what your children hear at the dinner table, how value is protected and understood, and how family culture is formed. Once the target becomes dynasty instead of retirement, your whole financial architecture has to be redesigned from the ground up. Most people never make that redesign, not because they lack the money or anything like that, or they feel that they have too little, which that is not an excuse. Big things come from small, humble beginnings, but it's because no one ever really diagnosed the problem correctly. And without the diagnosis, the pattern runs uninterrupted, silently, quietly over time until time runs out and the assets run dry. It works flawlessly as it was designed. And no, they're not going to teach us that in school. And no, they're not going to, give us a bunch of self-help. I mean, it's there if we want to learn it on our own. And that's exactly what we do here at the PBG. But most people can't be bothered with it. They just think they understand it, and that's fine. That's their life. But there's a lot of people that do die with financial regret. They really do. And here's the thing. When you do your diagnosis and it finally lands on the truth square, something actually opens up for you. The weight lifts off your shoulders. The wrong ceiling disappears because you realize it was artificial and in your mind and habits and behavior only. And in its place, it's not changed with comfort, but it's changed with purpose. A purpose to our life and a purpose to our existence and a purpose to what we're doing. There's a different kind of energy that appears when someone realizes that their story was never meant to end with themselves. In a way, that kind of thinking is a little bit selfish, isn't it? King Solomon didn't step into a completely finished kingdom I know that's sort of the image that maybe we get from Sunday school or church or even some particular writings, but he didn't step into something that was completely done. He inherited a project that was already underway. His father, King David, had spent years accumulating resources that Solomon hadn't personally gathered. He got cedar, bronze, iron, stone, on a scale that bordered the inconceivable, all while still fighting wars and a divided family, trying to unite both kingdoms. I mean, that was a tough one. If you look in First Chronicles chapter 22, verse 14, King David tells Solomon that he had labored intensely to prepare for the house of the Most High, gathering 100,000 talents of gold. A talent weighed about 75 pounds, so you know. So that's 750,000 pounds of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, and more bronze and iron that could even be weighed. It was just on tap. It just flowed. And David didn't consume that stockpile. He didn't use it for himself or his own lavish designs and build big, beautiful mansions and things like that. He didn't spend his final years burning through it. He was a good steward and he kept it and he gave it forward to the next in line, which was his son, Solomon. And that's what a biblical dynasty looks like in practice, in motion, in reality. David still wasn't hurting for anything. He still had a palace. In our example, that would be a very nice home. He still had food, he had clothes, he had all of the creature comforts. But there was still more to be done. And because of the problem with Uriah, the Hittite, and Bathsheba, he had innocent blood on his hands, and therefore he could not build the temple. The Most High forbade him to do it. No, because you have done this thing and you have innocent blood on your hands, you will not build my temple. That will be for the next one. So David did the next best thing. He made sure all the building supplies were on the job site. That's exactly what he did. If you go to Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, that gives the principle in a very direct, easy to understand manner. A good man, not a regular man, not a man. It says a good man. So now there's a class of man. Leaves an inheritance to his children's children. But the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. That means everything that they're doing will be taken from them and given to the righteous. And we'll get to some examples of what that actually looks like. Now, slow down and feel the weight of that for just a minute. The righteous person is thinking beyond his own children. He's operating on a timeline longer than his own life. His concern isn't just what he can enjoy, but what his grandchildren will be able to stand on. Not leave his grandchildren a paycheck. He left them an inheritance. That's volume. A paycheck is a singularity. And then in the second half of that verse, it's really kind of got some punch to it, like the backslap. The wealth of the undisciplined doesn't vanish. It gets redirected. It moves towards people who build containers strong enough to receive it and store it. The undisciplined are the ones that can't stop spending. They're immersed in consumerism. They're the ones that don't want to do the hard work that it takes to build a generational wealth machine. They want to live in their comfort zone now, but they'll live out of it later if the Bible is true. Instead of living outside their comfort zone now so they can live in their comfort zone later, they're backwards. They're undisciplined. They're out of control consumers, like a spoiled, petulant child. And until they change that, they're going to lose everything. And it doesn't mean that it's going to go from this family to another family. No, it's going to go someplace far more sinister than that. It's going to go to the corporations and the tax man. That is who is going to fight over the corpse called their estate. They will consume it like parasites because that's what they are. And the thing is, though, King Solomon, an economic reality, this has weight, it has gravity, it has pull, it has force. Long-term capital settles into systems that know how to hold it. It has no choice because money is always in motion. It will not sit still. It can't. By its function, it simply cannot remain. It will ingress and egress unless there is a container that knows how to hold it. Meanwhile, everyone else lets it slip their fingers. Impulse shopping, compulsive spending, living beyond their means, giving all their money towards interest and the lenders. All of those things contribute to why it's slipping through their fingers. And what many people overlook is that Proverbs 13 isn't merely just a money chapter. It is heavily into that, but that's not really what it is. But it's also a wisdom transmission chapter. And wealth shows up inside that larger pattern if you have eyes to see. Now, verse 1 says that a wise son hears his father's instruction. A wise son will listen to the older generation. Verse 11 says, wealth gained too quickly dwindles. There's your get rich quick stuff. There's your, I got $100 million bank account because of my birth certificate. All bills are prepaid. I'm going to discharge everything to the government. Going to get that bag from the IRS and borrow from myself. Going to use negotiable instruments. That's where that comes from. But the one who gathers a little by little sees increase because it's safer. Verse 16 says the prudent act with knowledge. It means they get an education first. They don't just listen to what everybody in the town square is saying to do by a bunch of no-name people. You have no idea if they even know what they're talking about. So King Solomon really isn't just giving investment advice. He's describing formation. He's literally giving you the education first, be prudent so you know what you're doing and how to do it. A dynasty just isn't money preserved in an account. That's where everybody gets this wrong. It's wisdom, discipline, mental architecture carried across generations to do something with the assets that have been gained thus far. And here's the thing. The mechanics of generational transfer, they're not mysterious. It's not something that nobody can really understand except for a chosen few. No. They're just uncomfortable. And as humans, we tend to avoid anything that's uncomfortable. Man, we will go to the ends of the earth to avoid being uncomfortable, even though that journey to the end of the earth is due. Then your current self has to say no to things that feel normal, deserved, convenient, entitled. You choose structure over upgrade. Sure, it'd be great to have a $100,000 luxury car. Can you get by with a medium-priced average car? Would that be okay? It's better than walking. When your income rises, your lifestyle should not automatically expand to encompass that income, because now that's no longer an overage that you can use to go get you more money, because money has a job and its only job is to go get more of itself. But if you consume that by expanding your lifestyle, it's now an AI replaces you, or you get fired, company gets sold, goes out of business, and you're suddenly looking for work than you were making, but your bills don't care. You see, if you hadn't expanded your life into that income, you can survive a loss of income if you're depending on a paycheck instead of yourself. Legal protections to come along with that income. You form trusts. you title assets in a way that serve future heirs rather than, present convenience. None of that gives an instant emotional payoff. It truly don't. But all of it does matter if you're serious about building something that lasts. Now, keep in mind, at the height of King Solomon's wealth, at the height, this was several decades into his reign. It happened over generations. The gold routes, the trading networks, the fleets, the alliances, none of it was assembled merely to make one man's life more comfortable. Solomon already lived a comfortable life. It seems like a lot of work to go through to be more comfortable, but how do you be more comfortable when you're content? Yeah, I mean, that might be a spirit inside you that you don't want. And it was also built to continue beyond him, not just for his family, but for the ancient Hebrews. He was being a steward of all of that wealth to make sure that the Hebrews could survive as a people. People who work with legacy in mind instead of an escape often report something surprising. We hear it all the time. They don't lose energy as the years go on. They don't slow down. They're not ready for the lazy boy. They're not ready for the couch. In many cases, they get more energy. That is so inspiring. And that confuses people who assume long-term labor should wear a person down. So you're going to retire when your body is old and broken and you can't run and jump and do all those things anymore because those years are long gone. However, there are still people in their later years in life that are extremely active and can still do some of those things. Now, I wonder what the difference is. Yeah, pretty interesting. But once you start to see the deeper reason, I think it starts to make sense. I'm sure many of you do too. The soul wasn't made to count down towards irrelevance. It was made to compound toward being fruitful. When your work is tied to something that will outlive your body, the whole emotional experience of labor changes. You're no longer grinding towards the withdrawal, the subtraction model that the big they have set up for all of us. You're actually planting towards a harvest other people one day will gather. And somehow that makes the planting feel more alive. And these could be people that you'll never meet, but they will continue on through your family and you will be regarded. And that's also a blessing. You'll be providing for your future heirs long after you leave. You can't take it with you. I mean, it'd be great, but no extra baggage. The food that they eat, the land that they will own, that was accumulated by you for them. You plant some trees on your land, and these are fruit-bearing trees, and they live a good ripe age. Your great-grandchildren, you go plant some apple trees, and you are feeding your great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren that you will never know. But guess what? The day that you planted that tree, you're feeding people. That labor in the sun, that hard work, that expense that you willingly took on, you're feeding someone. And it's not just someone. It's a continuation of you. Your DNA is still alive in your descendants. Even though they may not know you, they will surely know of you. That's pure love, and it goes far beyond time and space, and you need to grasp that. Isn't that a beautiful thought? Yeah. If you turn to Isaiah chapter 65, verse 22, it says, "My chosen shall long enjoy the work of their," point to a finish line where the meaning of all the labor ended. It points to enduring, sustained delight in fruitful work. There's no retirement in it. It's flourishing, thriving, and growing, and that matters enormously for dynasty thinking. Dynasty thinking. Your financial labor isn't disconnected from your spiritual calling. regardless of your faith. It can be one of the primary instruments by which provision reaches the people after you. So really, when you look at it that way, ceasing to build something isn't merely retirement. It's stepping away from your responsibility. You are the patriarch, matriarch of your family. If you're the one that is now able to go out and do the labor, the work, and the gathering and the building, it is your responsibility. So, like, what counts as a real asset under this type of framework? A real money can be exchanged for something tangible. It's land that's protected by law. And if you know how to structure your land right, not with these allodial titles and all this weird internet stuff, but truly know what you're doing, it's protected. A business with systems documented well enough to survive beyond just you. If you're not there, the business is so well tuned that any body of wisdom recorded clearly enough that future generations can access it. You're leaving them journals. But it's still a thought. It's still a thought, right? And that's what we have to keep in mind. So that's where we're going. Well, at least I hope that's where we're going. So the form may differ, the test stays the same. Before you buy or build anything major, ask yourself one question. Can someone after me take this and increase it? If the answer is no, then you already know what category it belongs to. Stop burning seeds that should have been planted. Every dollar is, and we'll cover more of that on our next episode. We appreciate your time. God bless.